Hi, everyone. Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order, and can we have a roll call, please?
Yeah.
I'd also like to indicate that it's 6:02.
Thank you. Okay, so Miriam Fuentes. Susana Martinez.
Here.
Katie Kensock.
Here.
Franklin Hernandez.
Here.
Rachel Ingleskerger.
Here.
Ann Dearborn.
Here.
Veronica Aguayo Ochoa. Lori Piombo.
Here.
And Brian Tuff.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Excellent. The next agenda item is Assistant Superintendent Welcome.
And I'd like to welcome you to our final session of 4 sessions as we work on a recommendation to the Napa Valley Unified School District School Board for the naming of the new middle school language academy. So I'm looking forward to us concluding that work tonight, and I'm eager to see what is determined to be the recommendation. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Chairperson Teff to start that process.
Okay.
Wait, before, I see Mr. Michaels, can you promote Dr. Musetti, please? Okay, now we can go ahead and continue, Chairperson Teff.
All right. We have a couple of other items to take care of. 1.3 is acceptance of the agenda. So this is the agenda that was emailed and posted. I would like to call for a motion, please, to accept the agenda.
A motion to accept the agenda for October 12th.
Lori Piombo, and is there a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor, aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. The next is acceptance of the minutes as emailed out and posted online. A call for a motion, please, to accept the minutes.
I motion to accept the minutes.
Second,
I second.
who was that?
I second.
The Catherine Kensock, thank you.
Yes.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. The minutes are accepted. Thank you very much. And the minutes are well written, by the way. I'm not sure who prepares them on staff, but I thought they very accurately represented our meeting last time. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Chairperson Teff. I'll make sure to let the staff member know that. So thank you.
Our next item is number 2, discussion items of possible name recommendations. And this is really where some of where we left off last time. So at this time, are there any other name recognitions that we need to discuss and put on the list?
Can we display the list again? Can I recommend Todos Unidos? I don't know if we can add to this list again, but
What was it, Katie? Sorry.
Todos Unidos.
Todos Unidos.
Todos Unidos.
Yeah, I mean, I believe we can add to the list as the Citizens Advisory Committee. We did leave our last meeting we were unified that we would be very judicious in adding to the list, because our task tonight is to hopefully agree on a single recommendation to the board. Any other comment on our list as it is presented in front of us? Okay, so let's see here. How are we going to do tonight's meeting? The next action item is a recommendation of the name to the school board. So that's really the action item. So here we are discussing. So in where we are in our meeting tonight is we need to talk about these names and we need to bring the list down. And the tool that we're going to use to do it is, Monica, you've presented in front of us. So our task team here is to really talk about that list and make it one, hopefully. So I'm looking for some committee support with perhaps ideas on how we might do that. Monica has.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chairperson Tuff. I think in our conversations, right, this is a proposed process we can use tonight with some adjustments if there need be from the committee. But taking a look at, since we last met, what could be added as was mentioned, what could be eliminated, making sure we review those guiding principles around the board policy. Are there any names that don't align? And then going through the process of revisiting our interests and other considerations to hopefully narrow that down. So in working with Chairperson Tuff around this process, that came up, but again, we can make adjustments if we see fit.
Okay, well, everybody don't jump in at once. I'd really to start this process off, Napa or Napa Valley Middle School Language Academy is one that I had put up there, and after our last meeting I didn't really feel that there was a lot of committee support for that. So that is a name that I would like to, I think that there is perhaps some confusion with our other program, Napa Valley Language Academy, and unless I have some committee support to keep that on the list, I'm going to recommend that we remove that from our choices. Is there anybody on the team here that would like to save Napa or Napa Valley Middle School Language Academy? That's perhaps what it might end up as on this list, or shall we strike it?
And pardon me, Chairperson Tuff, can we promote, Mr. Michaels, can you promote Miriam Fuentes to as a panelist, please? Thank you.
I agree. I think it can get a little bit confusing with Napa Valley Language Academy. But I do understand the Napa Middle School. But I kind of agree with you. I think it can get confusing.
So team, anybody want to jump up and save that one? If not, Monica, please remove that from the list.
Napa Valley Middle School, I agree. I think it sounds, I don't think it would be confused with the elementary if we put the Napa Valley Middle School in it.
So I'm hearing some support for it. We can move on. As I was talking to people and reading a little bit about our process, the Voces del Valle and Voces Unidas is possible confusion with the Voices program that's in the community. I think that they should be removed from the list for just the same as we talked about Napa United. Is there anybody that would like to support those names staying on the list as we have our discussion today to narrow it down to one?
I
Brian.
had that same concern.
Yes.
So I was going to bring that to the group this week. So I'm glad that you brought it up. I think it is a legit concern that we definitely don't want to, overstep their program, of course. So.
Yeah, I want to, I guess, third that concern as well, because I think I thought about that as well, Chairperson, and I think it would also get confusing with the fact that there is a community name that is called Voices and Voices as well in Napa.
Mhm.
I hear the concern and I'm familiar with Voices. It never once crossed my mind as we were discussing it that could be a confusion. And everyone who, I know there was the Napa Register article released and folks are aware of the names that are circulating, and I never once heard that as a concern from folks who are aware of the Voices program. And I do really enjoy the names. Is the Voices program, just so I can clarify, in Spanish, are folks referring to it as Voces, or are they still referring to it as Voices?
I don't know if I could speak to, we do some work with the Voices, but I don't know if I could speak to that for our community. Could I get clarity around where we left off with Napa and Napa Valley, if that, I'm not clear in taking notes, if that's something I'm striking through or keeping.
Brian, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I would like to remove it. I do think that it's a viable option, but I'm not seeing a lot of support for it. So Miriam, thank you for speaking up in favor of it. We could actually, I suppose, go to a motion to remove, or we can just come to a group consensus here. Would anybody else like to save that name from the list? We've got a little bit of a task to do here today. We have to find a construct to get down to one. And our first thought process is we would remove some of the names. So I'm asking to remove it unless somebody would like to, again, save it.
Maybe it would be,
Go ahead.
maybe it would, so how many are we gonna come down to just the last 3 names today, or what is the plan?
Our intention today is to identify a single name and have that presented to the board on Thursday as the advisory committee recommendation for the school name. And at that point, the community can comment on it, and the school board directors can make the choice however they see fit. But we as a committee, our intention is to come down to one name tonight.
I think if we go back to our list of interests, we can possibly narrow down our list through that lens and through that perspective. Monica, remind me, the reason we highlighted some of those interests is because those interests in yellow came up for parents also?
The interest in yellow from both our English speaking and Spanish speaking community, when we sent out the survey, came through as the most valued, most important when considering a name. Those 3 that are highlighted at the top.
So I think we should use that original list that we generated in that first meeting, right, where we talked about interests to help us then come up with our name, and just see if that name, or the names that we're going to end up with, align to the interests and the considerations. So we could either start at the top, or we can go with what Brian was, starting with, Napa Valley or Napa or Napa Valley.
I also have a question. Do we have a list? I have it small from the slides, but the ones we voted on, remember how we voted on, and I'm just wondering if nobody voted on the ones with no votes, we could eliminate those too. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just a thought.
So these that are remaining are the ones that were voted on that had 2 or more,
Two or more. Okay.
minus the Napa or Napa Valley. And so
Okay.
those were transferred over at the last meeting, making the decision to bring them forward. You'll
Okay.
notice that and the Un Valle Unido,
Mhm.
there's a strike through the UN based off of a public comment around the shortening of that or we talked a little bit about acronyms, or if it was shortened, that may create some confusion about just any valley as opposed to, and please speak up if I'm misquoting that, but there were no other changes made in the transfer other than acknowledging that public comment and the confusion that it may be caused. I didn't take it off. I just put a strike through it for that reason.
Okay. Do we want to put how many votes we had next to each thing? Is that helpful to anybody, or is it just from top to bottom? Is that what that's from descending order?
It is in descending order, but I can go back through. I'll stop screen sharing for a minute and I can go back through and add the votes in.
I like Alejandro's idea of going through the list top to bottom, just talking about the pros and cons so that we can see all the information out there. Because I'm sure things have come to our attention, and then going from there, if that sounds good to everyone.
I think that's a good idea. Let's, instead of looking at them one at a time, let's make sure we look at the whole set and then we can make an evaluation. Monica, can you share your screen again and we'll start at the top? Sorry for the Zoom gymnastics.
Okay, I've had lots of practice. So this is the charting from last time. And so you can see the votes of 6, 5, 3, 2, 2, and then these asterisks, the stars that represent 1 each.
Monica, I also remember that there were some of us that voted for United, and then we took that off. And so, but we didn't get to put those votes anywhere else. So that could have changed the votes. So
that is true. The United Language Academy was moved on here in the discussion around the confusion with Napa United, the soccer club. Is that correct, Anne?
yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if we should really go by number of votes.
Mhm.
Okay. It's because I said I had it under control with all my Zoom practice that I'm. Okay, there you go.
Okay, well, let's start at the top. Corazon del Valle, is there, how does this align to our interests, and does anybody want to talk about this? So I guess we'll go with the grid in front of us. How does this align to our interest? Can you scroll up just a little bit so we can see our interests?
I think Corazon del Valle represents the new middle school being the heart of the valley, not maybe in location, because that's maybe more Yountville, but in a manner of schools joining together in community to form the heart, the center of the community, reflecting the importance of bilingualism and biliteracy.
And I feel like that's the heart of the dual immersion program, is uniting and bringing people together.
I have heard some concerns that NVLA has the heart as kind of like the emblem of NVLA. And some publicista students have said like, oh, would we be going to the NVLA schools? So I don't know if it 100% represents, both schools equally, which I know is our intention.
I agree with you, Catherine. I had sort of after our last meeting, but also I thought about that a lot. And then being on the campus, like when you go to Parent Square, the first thing you see on Parent Square, it's a heart. If you're a staff person or a parent, on Parent Square, there's a heart. You walk around our campus, their hearts everywhere. So, and even parents a lot of times kind of refer to NVLA as the heart. You know, there's a lot of heart at NVLA. So that for me would be something of a sort of a concern as well, that it I mean, I think the new middle school definitely could be a place where we are bringing all these schools together, but I just don't see how Corazón del Valle sort of again creates that. You know, I think, you know, I would lean towards more supporting a name of a school that just represents something really new and different, and that kind of would move towards not, you know, either the students feeling that it's connected to either Puebla Vista or to NVLA. But I also agree with you. I mean, I thought about that, and a lot of my students too, they kind of have mentioned that too. It's like, but aren't there other students from, you know, other schools going there? So again, I agree with you, Catherine.
A little bit of not a problem, but an issue is, like, I don't know if NVLA's logo, you know, they also have the globe or the world on the shirts, you know, so it's kind of like, it feels like you could be global or whatever, because we had talked about that one too, is they kind of use the world, the globe, you know, the heart with the world in it, the world. There's probably, I don't know if there's, Ale, is there one logo that's NVLA represented? I mean, which one would it be?
Well, it's either one. We have two, right? We have the globe, like you're saying, with all the continents, and then we also have the heart, and we use them both for different things.
Something to think about.
I like Corazón del Valle. I like the sentiment that expresses, but as we're talking about other considerations, is that it has a lot of sort of meanings. We've talked about it being a geographical location. You know, this is sort of right in the middle of the valley, but I don't really think that's what we're saying. I think we're actually saying that the heart of the community is a bilingualism, and that's a reflection of Napa in general. And so it's a great sentiment, but it's got a lot of angles. It's not specific.
Do we want to go through each one and come back through, or okay?
Valle Unido I liked because I thought it was kind of merging like Corazón del Valle and Unidos, but I know with the whole debate on Un Valle Unido, El Valle, like, you know, that whole thing, I understand that can be very confusing. And, you know, our intention may be missed with El Valle or something like that, middle school.
Katie, if I capture that as the lack of specificity in the translation, would that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's what it ends up being would be El Valle or Un Valle, like what that parent had said last time. And I talked to some other like Latino parents and teachers, and they kind of agreed. So I think our intention could be missed.
Yeah, it's like it literally gets lost in the translation.
I do think that it aligns to our interests and that it honors and values the two schools. You know, I don't think that there's any part of that name that really leans towards one school or the other.
So we're paused on Valle Unido. As a English speaker, those are some two tough Spanish words for a non-native speaker. I don't, perhaps that gets stuck in the.
I think that's a valid concern. I think that we need to take that into consideration also, because that's going to be part of our population. We want everybody to be able to say the title of the school.
I mean, if I can kind of speak to that a little bit, I'm in kind of looking at it the other way. Not every Spanish speaker can pronounce many of our English names. So just to kind of put that out there.
Yeah, I hear that. I that's actually, I think, what we are attempting to fix is, a comfort in a couple of different languages here in California. But if I look around for, Tiburon and San Francisco and Sacramento, is that sort of the culture has landed us with incorrect pronunciations, and we will have to move forward with that and strive to fix it.
It's hard. This is hard to come up with one.
Why don't we move on to the next one and see if what the generation of thoughts are for that one.
Voces del Valle, in my experience, in my work and in my social life, I think that English and Spanish are the voices and the languages I hear. So to me, Voices del Valle is sort of tangible. Opposed to an idea, like a Heart of the Valley.
Yeah, well, VOSA stands for everybody, right? If it ever changed and you had other languages spoken here, not just English and Spanish, it would still be a good name for it.
I think that supports our intention and interest in global citizens, that they have voices, and that's in multiple languages. And like Miriam said, you can add on some more languages if that ever happened to happen in the future.
It's okay with the group. I'm gonna copy and paste these into the next one as they reflect the voices piece. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, maybe not.
Maybe I'm looking at it too, like I'm looking at it too much into it. But when I think of like Voces del Valle, and I think of sort of like maybe just limiting it to the valley, so it's setting a boundary. Whereas Voces Unidas, there is no geographical boundary, whether in abstract or intangibility. So I like how Voces Unidas is open. It's just, a united voices, and there's no like boundary or limitation on it. Whereas Voces del Valle, it's like we're just limiting it to the voices of the valley, even though our school is in the valley.
I think that voices is really just open to all languages, right? Voices. And in the valley, that would be, it sounds really I prefer Voces del Valle as opposed to Voces Unidas, that I do like Unidas too, but I think that it has that geographical essence to it, because anybody that comes to this school, they have to live in the valley. That's just my opinion.
We do have students in the immersion program that actually don't live in the valley. We have students who live in Vallejo. We also have students in the immersion program who live in Fairfield, who actually come to the valley. So, I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying. And I think, I think the Voces Unidas does also kind of, it kind of makes it more broad as well. So I just kind of wanted to mention that, because it's not just the voices of the valley, it's sort of the voices around, maybe in the valley and outside the valley as well.
Yeah, thanks. Just from a staff perspective, thank you for saying that, Franklin. Just naming it, it's the interdistrict transfer process. So we definitely have students from outside district boundaries that attend, and with declining enrollment, that could become more of a reality as we try and recruit students. And specialized programs like this sometimes are definitely of interest beyond just the boundaries of the district. So I think that's an important thing to think about.
In prior meetings, I think a lot of folks were interested in the word unidos or unidas too. So to have voces and unidas together, I think is kind of the best of both worlds with that name as well.
Chairperson Tuff, are we ready to move on to the next one?
Yes, I think so.
And since I copied and pasted, I just want to clarify I'm on Unidos, correct?
Yes. I believe we are on Unidos.
So for me, Unidos is, I think Unidos is a very powerful word. I just think it's sort of, I don't know, there's something in the strength about its simplicity that I really like. I think there's so much that word can really kind of encompass and that can be part of. And there's so many things that it can relate to. It can relate to right now, this huge change in these two schools kind of coming together. Changes in what this new program is going to look like and sort of what it can bring to Napa. I don't know. I really, again, I really like it because it's just it's just a word that again, just like encompass so much for me. I think, and I think the other piece too is again, as a sixth grade teacher, that I've been teaching sixth grade for a long time, and I've had the students, like they've talked about it during the process, and one of the things too, I think for me is like I had to kind of think about, okay, who's going to be sitting in those classrooms? Who are the ones who are going to be identifying with that school? And I think there's something about the word unidos that's strong. Like I think, I don't know, I guess I had to kind of like think outside of like, okay, it's not about me, it's about them. And then how are they going to sort of feel when they're there? And I think having a word that's kind of seems really simple and something that they can, I don't know, there's a certain strength about it. I mean, I really like all the other ones, but I think there's something very, I don't know if it's like, I don't want to use the word middle schoolish about it, but I guess that's the only word I can think about. Again, given sort of knowing my students and knowing how they kind of talk about their school, or, like talk about a middle school, that they sort of, they want to kind of feel like that they're a place that's very different than when they were in elementary school. And I think there's something about Unidos Language Academy or Unidos Middle School that makes it really short and powerful. So that's sort of my, I guess, soapbox for Unidos.
Franklin, when you go into middle school, it's really the first time after your elementary school that you get to meet other people, and it's great. We have Pueblo Vista, where the kids get to meet other kids in the program, and that is true. Having that feeling united and having a place where you come together. I like that too. And I think for middle school, like you said, it's very appropriate because you're going to be uniting with other kids that you haven't met, and they're your future, possibly best friends and stuff. It's kind of a cool thought.
And also I like it because there's part that it could be called ULA. And it's sort of a very simple kind of acronym. It makes it sound like they're going to a university. I don't know. Like there's something about it that's kind of very short. I don't know. Something about that I felt could be easy.
It's on a t-shirt.
It totally fits on a t-shirt, and in huge letters, it fits on a t-shirt. So, definitely. So again, that's kind of my thought. And I really, again, I love all the other names. I really do, around the corazón, la voz, and but I guess I think more and more that I've had time to think about it and look at it through the lens of sort of my students, I sort of, started looking at, and I even also thought about Chairperson Teff about Napa, or the Napa Valley name too as well, because it's sort of, again, it's like this idea of looking at it like the middle school, like a middle school, and at this age, I think, again, this is just from my experience in teaching 6th grade, a lot of the students, it's like about identity, like they're all about this like identity and something that they're kind of make a connection with. And I think there's just the whole idea about unidos is like unity, that they can make a connection that's so wide, and that they can create that on their own too, what that looks like.
Franklin, for clarity, this came from a student, is that correct? Okay.
So I'd like to ask a couple sort of clarifying questions,
Yeah, go ahead.
if I can. We, at the previous meeting, essentially disqualified Napa United because the United was too familiar, or United Middle School, because it was too close to the soccer program.
Right.
Unidos is not, in the Spanish speaking community, Napa United is not translated, right? That is a given name, so there is no confusion there by calling this. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other thing that I have on this particular name is, as an English speaker, I was very comfortable with the United Language Academy, but we chose to not push that forward. For the Spanish speakers on the committee, does Unidos, does that really flow? I mean, is that a powerful word? I mean, are we like to get kind of someone to speak in the same way that Franklin did about Unidos as a word?
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Absolutely. Specifically in the Spanish language and a lot of Spanish speaking cultures, we have lots of phrases where united or some form of the roots of united is implemented. We say en la unión está la fuerza, and union, which is a synonym for united. I'm sorry if you hear noise in the background, that's my kid in the jumper. But absolutely, Unidos is a very powerful word in both connotation and denotation in the Spanish language. It represents power, it represents community, it represents the desire to want to overcome something together, to want to become successful together. So there's definitely deeper meaning into that. And I do want to piggyback off of what Franklin said in terms of there is strength in the simplicity. And I like Unidos in itself because I do believe it represents the 3 top attributes of what we want the middle school to be. You know, we want to represent globalism. I mean, nothing is more beautiful than the thought of a united global community. Bilingualism in the form of there being this idea of being fluid bilinguals, not just being Spanish or English, but being both at the same time. And so I feel like Unidos captures that, where students can flow between English and Spanish all in the same time, all in the same day, all in the same moment. And I think Unidos, like if we put that in front of the community and in front of our students, then Unidos, they're gonna reach these academic successes together, not by themselves, because, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a community to move forward.
Yeah, I'll also chime in here. I think this one has really grown on me as well. I like its simplicity. It sounds very harmonious. I mean, it's a group of students or schools coming together to achieve a shared goal, this biliteracy, bilingualism. So this one has grown on me. I like it.
I agree.
Unidos might also give a little bit of flexibility with slogans and using it in the classroom, using it in sports. You can add in Voces Unidos when you want to talk about like uniting your voices. You can talk about, what was it? I had something else in my brain, but you can always add on to it in any way. It's a lot more flexible. So I am seeing the value in that, because I was like, oh, Voces, come on.
Yeah.
But
and also
you can add
Corazon.
so much to Unidos.
You could add the Corazon Unidos when you needed to too. The heart, right? The voice. There's a lot of things that we could unite and work off of when we keep a simple name like that. That's a good point, Katie.
I think that's what I kept landing on about when I was thinking about it a lot this week. And also just in conversation with my student who originally had the word unite, he had United Language Academy. So, but his whole idea again was like, well, it's just where all of us can get together. And it was, again, so simple, the way he sort of described it. Then it just kind of stuck in my mind. And I appreciate all of your comments, because I think that's why I think I more and more got drawn to it, because Unidos, you can add Unidos en ser bilingüe, Unidos en ser una comunidad, Unidos, and it's like there's so many, you know, Unidos como estudiantes, Unidos como amigos, Unidos. There's just, I mean, imagine the t-shirts that we can make.
Yeah, and just the teaching moments too, you know, I mean, it always can come back to that. That is like the whole philosophy. It's so simple. It's like, you know, the 3B rules, right? But you're right. There's so much you can do with it. And it's such a beautiful concept.
I see it as Unidos, and then maybe below, like when you make the t-shirts for your motto, like Corazon and all the other great names that have also wrapped from this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely leaves room to like almost have a slogan, right?
Like more than one slogan.
Yeah, and what kind of reminds me of what we do with NVUSD, right? Excellence grows here, but then sometimes that word gets switched out for something else. So it's the same idea with Unidos, right? Which speaks to, again, teamwork and coming together, right? Merging different schools. So I think it fits both of those, or checks both of those boxes.
I also think it's really powerful that it comes from a student.
Mhm.
So that's why I asked that in particular, Franklin. So thanks for clarifying that for me. I think giving voice to our students is important.
If there is another consideration, although probably not a super relevant one, that there is another school called Unidos Dual Language School. It's in Forest Park, Georgia. I don't think there will be confusion.
I do just, if I could just quickly, from a real big picture sort of marketing perspective, just working on the district's branding and having had kind of that past professional history a couple of times, like to, I think Alejandra just said it, but I want to elevate it a little bit, is that, you know, if you think of, you know, Napa Valley Unified School District is the district's name, and we have inserted taglines, right? You call them sort of marketing taglines. You could think, Unidos would be the name of the school, Unidos Middle School. And then, some of these concepts that are emerging could surface as a potential tagline that can get swapped out over time or used initially at the launch of the opening of the school. So I just want to elevate the point that Alejandra brought up in terms of, if you're going to create marketing material, especially since it's a new school, and it's going to be an open enrollment school, marketing will be sort of at the forefront. And so having a simple name that then creates space for a tagline that can evolve over time, I think has a lot of potential. Again, given that it's a completely open enrolled school and marketing will be at the forefront of what we do for this school.
Just quick question for clarification. Is Unidos translated as united or unity?
Unity is unidad and
Okay.
Unidos is united. Mhm.
Okay.
Is there such a word as unido with no S?
Yes, there is. That's just single, right? Like one person. So, but we want to put the S in there because we're all united. Todos estamos unidos. So in order to capture, in order to capture a group of people, we need it to be plural, right? I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that.
I know we have a lot of Spanish experts on the committee, which is awesome, but I would echo what Principal Uribe said. That seems accurate.
We have quite a list. I would suggest that Todos Unidos as a name, probably per our just had discussion, flows up into Unidos as a name.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I agree. Unidos is stronger. I think it's more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, and it didn't look this way last week or a couple weeks ago, but Todos Unidos, now that I'm reading it again, sounds a little redundant to me, actually. I prefer just Unidos standalone.
Can I strike through that one then?
Yes, I put that there and yes, I agree.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so group, do we want to, there is the second part of this name that's at the bottom of the screen here. Do we want to absolutely finalize a recommendation for the front half of the name, or do we want to have any discussion around the second portion of the name before we move forward? That would be a conversation.
I would just recommend that we maybe identify the first part of the name and then do the second part. So I think the first part's going to take the bulk of the time.
Okay, seeing head shakes. All right. So it's very nice to see everybody's face, but Monica, I would love to see your screen because that's sort of like the work at hand.
I really miss paper charts right now and Post-it notes and smelly pens in a real room. There you go.
Yeah, because if we're in a room, we would be having little stickers and go around putting our stickers on our favorite name, right? That's sort of a process. So open to the group, we have now gone through alignment and other considerations.
I wonder if now would be a good time to sort of take the pulse of where people are and sort of where they're leaning toward. Since we've narrowed it down to, I'm not quite sure what 4 or 5 names, like maybe we can identify. Monica, is that 4 or 5? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 names
There you go. I think I can get them all on the screen.
that maybe, committee members can speak to, maybe the ones that what they're leaning toward, maybe 2 that they're leaning toward, that might help and sort of narrowing the list a little further. Or if there's one that stands out particularly.
I'll start. Someone has to. I'm really leaning toward Unidos or Corazon del Valle.
I same boat with Brian.
I'm also leaning towards Unidos, and I like Corazon del Valle, but I think it might be good as maybe like a slogan or something after Unidos. I think Unidos, I like the strength in Unidos.
I agree with Anne too. Like for me, I really like Unidos. I also do like Corazon de Valle. I think it would be a great tagline. And again, I think for me, it's just kind of thinking like a 6th grader right now and think about them saying like, letting them know, I don't know, on Friday, like you're going to be going to Corazon de Valle. I don't know if I see a lot of excitement, but again, that's just me. I could be totally wrong. But I think again, Unidos is powerful. I think there's a lot can come from that.
Mr. Michaels, can you promote Miriam Puentes again, please?
Maestro Hernandez, you do hang out with 6th graders all day, so I think we're gonna trust your 6th grader.
I'm leaning towards Unidos.
I'm also leaning towards Unidos.
Unidos is the one, I think, too. I agree.
Agreed.
I feel like split between Voces del Valle and Unidos, but it's looking like Unidos is the majority.
Anybody else like to talk about their choice? Just a little bit of a point of order on our agenda. We're in the discussion item, and then we would move into the action item. And so the action item is we would, basically call for a vote on one of these, and everybody would agree or not agree. So I do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to discuss the second part of the name so that we don't have to go action item back to discussion, because that doesn't work in our agenda.
And do we have public comment that might sway our name choice?
I think after we finish the discussion, then we can ask for public comment. And then Chairperson Teff, I agree that doing the whole name at this point, like if we do, did everyone speak and give an opportunity? Did everyone share on the committee of our committee members what their sort of preference was? I think. Is that,
I don't know if I captured Veronica.
And I know Veronica's doing double duty, being a mom and serving her community at the same time. So she may not be able to sort of weigh in at this particular point.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Veronica, did I capture where you're leaning towards?
Yes, Unidos.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I think this is a good point. Chairperson Taft to maybe start thinking about what the end of the name will be. So if you want to ask the committee for some.
Yes, let's. Thank you. We have a short set here: Middle School, Language Academy, and Leadership Academy. I don't know that we can get away from middle school. Middle school is what it is. So
Yeah.
it is, we will be calling it a middle school in some form. And I actually believe that that's a very important part of what we will be calling it, because that's what, you know, through my personal research, that's what really sets us apart. That's what's very exciting about this school, is that it is a standalone middle school and not a K-8 program. Then, you know, thankfully that, you know, and to celebrate the K-8 programs, and DLI is becoming, they're out there, but we're doing something different. And I think that may be an opportunity to do more, you know.
And I would just echo that, Brian, because in my research that I've done, you know, as we're preparing to open up doors in August, is that there's only one more dual immersion middle school in the state of California, and that's in Long Beach. There's no other middle school. It looks like we're going to be the second one. So I think to your point about including middle school as part of our name, I think is important also. I mean, I like the language piece and the leadership piece also, but we're going to do something great in our state, in the nation, and I think it'd be good to capture that we are a dual immersion middle school, which is a rare gem, is what I'm learning.
Just as a context piece, just because I love to give context, Long Beach Unified, where that middle school is within, is an award-winning school district and one of the highest performing urbans and larger ones in the state. So just FYI, Long Beach does smart and good things. So I'm glad that that's where it is, because that's in terms of a district context, that's, like I said, one that is award-winning.
I feel like too, if we did Language Academy, it would be kind of confusing and a little bit not as welcoming to Pueblo Vista. So middle school seems like a really solid choice. I like it too.
Yeah, I agree. I thought about that too. Even though I know that ULA would fit great on a t-shirt, but so does UMS, right? So, and I also thought about if we said, Unidos Middle School, and then you can do a tagline underneath that says a language academy, something, and that just sort of, there's something about that kind of can also be done, I guess, in the marketing as well, right? You can, and it could be somewhere there, but the school would be just called Unidos Middle School. When we have our sign, the new sign up front, on the bottom of it can have a language academy, Unidos Middle School.
Yeah, I think it would be important to say somewhere, if it's a tagline, a language academy or a dual language immersion program. I'm not sure. Do you know what the middle school in Long Beach, what the title of their school is?
Yes, it's Helen Keller, dual immersion.
Okay. So just to make sure, because Unidos Middle School doesn't say immersion to me. So that's a consideration.
The same for me too. I actually think the opposite. I think Unidos Middle School to me does not stand out as a dual immersion or language school at all. I think it blends in with any other middle school, just looking at the name, that is, not actually having to go into the website or anything of that sort. Whereas if we tag it with Language Academy or even dual language, then I think that actually has it stand out and be unique, where right off, right from the gate, right from just sight alone, we can identify this new middle school as a language learning unity environment.
I would like to see the name of the school have Language Academy in it, right up front. My original position was I would like would have liked it to say, DLI or dual language immersion school. But we've been counseled that that's not true. It is not a single program school. So it would sort of be inappropriate to call it fully a dual language immersion school. But if we don't have that, we absolutely, I believe, need to call it Language Academy. Me being the t-shirt person, my suggestion would be something like Zumitos Language Academy Middle School, and just it would have to be a cultural commitment to not drop middle school. And I think about American Canyon. I mean, you can't say American Canyon Middle School right without middle school. That the names go together. They are not something that can be separated.
I think
No, and I
that's a great
definitely
point.
agree with, oops, sorry. I'm sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was going to say, I think, Brian, I think you're right. I think that's a really good point.
So Unidos dual immersion middle school, is that what you're thinking?
No, I don't. We don't have dual language immersion on our list here to talk about, but I don't think that actually accurately reflects the program that is intended.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think
Not everybody.
just to contextualize what Brian's saying, and there will be new language learners within the school, and the opportunity for new language learners who maybe have not been enrolled in the K5, K6 that are coming into that. And so in the last meeting, considering those particular students and families, dual immersion didn't come through in this particular list.
So that's why a language academy is, because it is about language, and everybody will be involved in that.
I do want to just weigh in from a very sort of technical, it's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. So it is, like I just looked up, Keller is called Keller Middle School. And then the tagline, if you look at some of the things online, offering a true 6th, 7th, 8th grade dual immersion program. I do want to sort of just get the group to think about it and then flesh it out and discuss it. But I would say that it does kind of become important. This isn't true for NVLA. We don't call Napa Valley Language Academy elementary school. But I do wonder, and maybe Monica and Pat, you can weigh in here, like at the middle school, high school level, it does feel like the marker of level. I'm just thinking of, I'm thinking of pursuit of grants. I'm just thinking, my head goes to a million places of the bureaucracy of where we have to like insert the name for a multitude of purposes that I don't even want to have to unpack here. It feels important to identify level, and that gets more relevant at the secondary level in some ways. So I don't, that's just my off the cuff thought. Pat and Monica, I would ask that you weigh in from a staff perspective.
I would agree that the leveling, and even take it from a student perspective of that ownership and that connection to being in a middle school, right? To echo what Dr. Musetti said, we don't say elementary school. Typically you hear Pueblo Vista or NVLA, Browns Valley, but oftentimes most people don't leave out the middle school in it, kind of to echo also what Chairperson Tuff was saying. And that marker of a student moving up, and even high school is often incorporated as you move up to that next level into just the everyday usage, as well as reflective of the level that it is, as well as the other pieces that would go into it.
And I would just add that I think by identifying it as a middle school, it does stand it apart from just any other sort of language academy or dual language program, which typically is K-8 or K-5 or K-6. And by identifying it as a middle school, that might help it to stand apart a bit. But I do hear the concern around not identifying the dual language part of it, and how does that fit? And I think a tagline, or making sure that that's part of whatever the logo, whatever that's included in there, because I do think that would be a critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, we don't have to rely on the name to do everything, right? Like the marketing and the branding tools, I think, can play a role in some of the well, because that resonates. I think what the committee's bringing up completely resonates with me around wanting to be distinguished as a language school of focus. But we don't necessarily have to rely on the entire name, like the name, to do that. There's a bunch of other tools in the toolbox on doing that. So I have the same concern that Pat just said, is that when you hear Language Academy, since elementaries and K-8s are the typical model, people will default to think that that's what it is, because it is rare to have the model that we're erecting, as we've identified, since it's unique in the state of California.
And just from having rebranded a couple of schools, and having actually similar discussion around the middle school piece, that advice around the marketing piece really helps it stand out when it is the main source of the name, not simply in the tagline. Gives clarity for, especially, I want to go back to, it is a fully open enrolled school. And so that's an important part of the next step for Principal Uribe and our team as we go to that. So having clarity in the name for those accessing it is important.
I suppose just coming from like my own perspective and my own upbringing, I really like the way Language Academy sounds. I think there's an associated and like an automatic associated prestige that accompanies it. And having grown up in a lot of the homes that is reflective of our students within this community, it's nice to know that you can be associated with such a name, right? And I know that we don't, we shouldn't just rely on the name to, carry all of the marketing, but it just has like a really nice tone to it and a nice association to it, where having it be Language Academy does automatically separate it from the schools, even if the default is maybe going to a K-8 program. But I also recognize and I hear what you have said about, having it be called a middle school and what that means for the kids in terms of moving up or even on the business aspect, on the bureaucracy aspect of it all, because I don't know that in. So it's nice to hear it.
I think group, let's move on to Leadership Academy to comment on everything on our list. Anybody like to start? I'll say give you my 2 thoughts on it. Is that I expect that the new school will have a leadership track through it. So to me, the Leadership Academy is more a program within the program rather than an identification of the school.
I feel like Leadership Academy, just the name itself, is even more misleading than just having it be named middle school. Even though I believe the students that are going to go through this middle school program are going to definitely come out as leaders among their community members, I just don't think that what the vision and goal is for this new platform is going to be primarily set in leadership qualities and technicalities.
Anybody like to speak really in favor of having Leadership Academy being considered? Okay, so I think we're at a point where we can move forward. I call for final comments here before we take public comment. That was the ask of the committee. Yes, can I get someone to agree on that?
Yes, I
Okay,
agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Monica, I'm going to ask for public comment here. So we're asking for, at this time, members of the public may address the committee regarding matters of public interest on the agenda. We're not going to take specific action of the comments unless they're specifically authorized by law. If the speaker wishes to address the committee on an item on the agenda, time will be provided before that item. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person.
And for those who are on, if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. You can see the feature down at the bottom of your screen on the Zoom, and Mr. Michaels will promote you.
Do we have any hands for public comment by the attendees? I believe we do. I'm gonna.
Yes, we do. Lorena Munoz, you are allowed to talk. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say that I also do like the name Unidos. And it doesn't have, the school doesn't have to have the dual immersion, like Dr. Mosetti says. I mean, marketing is everything. And if you guys use a language academy, like Unidos Language Academy, I think Unidos already represents, like, we're not coming just from MSLA, but we're also taking other students from other schools from out of town and Pueblo Vista. I think that should be a good head, like, going forward. Putting middle school is also good, but I do like the language academy because you can always use the dual immersion. Like MSLA has the dual immersion, but it doesn't say it on the name. And it also says Dos Idiomas Un Corazón, referring to language academy or the dual immersion program. It doesn't really says dual immersion. We know it is, but it doesn't really say it's all about marketing. But I think Unidos is a great name, and it says everything. Like, you can put everything Unidos. It's not just the ballet or the hearts or the voices. It's everything in general. Doesn't matter where they come from or who they are. I think that's a great one. That's it.
Thank you. Doesn't look like there's any other public comment. So our next agenda item is action item. This is the recommendation of the name for the new middle school. What's our process for this? So we don't really have it all planned out. I suppose that we have a motion for a name, and then we will, can this be an all in favor vote, or do we want a roll call? How do we do this at a committee level?
We should probably take roll call.
Okay.
But I'll defer to our other staff.
That is fine. That is fine to do roll call, and then first take a recommendation, take a motion for a recommendation, and then we can vote. And then if it passes, and then you open for take a recommendation, discuss, and then vote. Anything else I need to add, Dr. Mosetti? Is that correct?
Can you repeat the sequence that you just said?
To take a motion for a recommendation, and then have discussion, and then vote.
Yeah, we'll need a motion on the floor for discussion.
Okay. Chairperson Tess, you got that?
Yeah, sort of. We'll see if we can get it right here. So I'll take a motion for Unidos Middle School being the name recommended to the school board. And we'll take a discussion on that. And then if anybody feels so inclined, please make that motion.
Second that motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I feel like I could go either way with middle school or language academy. And I would just like to hear Dr. Mosetti and Alejandra's thoughts. I can go either way, but I feel like you guys, I would like to hear what you guys think.
Go ahead, Ale. or Principal Uribe, sorry. I call her Ale a lot of the time. But she's also Principal Uribe.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about the language academy piece. I've been thinking about the middle school piece. And I think as I've done some research with what's out there with middle schools, as I was saying earlier, middle school dual immersion, middle school language schools are very rare. So I think as we're putting ourselves out there in this community and in the state and bigger picture, I think it would be important to feel us as middle school, because it's going to be a very rare gem, and just in conversations that I've had with one of the authors of the guiding principles, he confirmed that having a language school, dual immersion middle school, which I don't want to call it just that, because we are going to include other students that are non-DLI, but most of the school will be DLI. I think that's important to capture the middle school piece in there, in the name. Do I like Language Academy? Of course I do. I mean, I like that piece. I come from that background. But I think as we're setting and starting new territory, I think it's important to market us as a middle school, and then kind of take it a step further and use some kind of tagline underneath it to tell a little bit more about our school, right? Dual immersion, or here we go again, right? It's not going to be a dual immersion. We can't call it dual immersion, at least not at the beginning, because we want to make sure that everybody feels welcome, right? It's our DLI, non-DLI, but everybody's going to be learning a second language. So I personally feel that the middle school piece should be included as part of the name. But I also like to, as Anne was saying earlier, I like the tagline, if we go with Unidos Middle School, El Corazón del Valle, right? Underneath it, like the heart of the valley, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's a geographic component to it, but it also speaks of just what we do when we embrace languages and cultures, right? So it has both of those connotations when we use that tagline too. I mean, there's a lot of ideas for taglines, right? But I like those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm tempted to just have you have the last word. I think Principal Uribe stated it very eloquently. I think I would leave it to her and kind of our marketing and PR team to kind of work on the tagline things and the marketing piece. The charge of the committee is just the core of the name. And as I hear Alejandra or Principal Uribe kind of flesh it out more and more and more, it's like there isn't a lot of path, like there isn't a solid definition of what dual language education looks like at the middle school level. Most people have shied away from that. It's so easy to go on the strand model. Most districts aren't willing to put this degree of investment that our board and our district has been willing to kind of put as support behind this model and be on the cutting edge. So I wonder, like our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that don't come as products of NVLA and PV, but are now making this early commitment in their language education. By the end of it, they might be products of a DLI middle school, right? Like they're going to be farther ahead. They're going to be immersed in like programmatic things like asambleas and eventos de cultura, right? Things that don't emerge in the Strand environment. And I would argue that's DLI at middle school, right? It's not just the class in isolation, but it's that they're being immersed in a school setting that is completely focused, which means they're going to get Spanish through their interactions with a lot of the adults, most of the adults on campus. They're going to get Spanish through all of the programming that wraps around the classroom. So the more I kind of even think about it, like I'm kind of comfortable doing what Helen Keller is doing, is like a dual language school, a school that offers 6th, 7th, and 8th dual language education and claiming that for all, right? As this kind of innovation emerges. So I would, I'll, Monica, Pat, the PR team, we'll the experts in the field. We have some immersion experts that are going to be working with Alejandra. I think we can kind of come to that conclusion. So that's I don't want folks to worry that we won't find a solid way to identify it as a language school. You have my commitment around that. And then I want to also honor the whole academy concept. I couldn't agree with what everyone said. I think it was Veronica who said it. This idea of prestige, I totally get, and I can lean into that. But I just want to echo that that Unidos, en español is a huge claim, like giving a school a name. Not a Spanish surname or a name of a Latinx individual, but like just a word in Espanol is rare. And so that on its own is communicating a mega message. And I can envision Principal Uribe speaking to that. It identifies the values of this committee. We're valuing Spanish, like we're elevating the language, that we're inserting a Spanish name in the word as the primary name of this school. That just says a million things to the world. And it also says we're probably about Spanish language and Latinx cultura and all of that. So there's some implicit messaging that I think we can rely on just by the fact that that you may select Unidos. And I'm going to go back to the bureaucracy and identifying that it's at middle school level. I think there's a claim in that as well. So I think you've heard from the different staffers. I think that's staff opinion if it's worth a lot. So thanks for asking again. And I know there's been some redundancy, but you're about to make a big decision. So I think it's important for you to have staff perspective on it.
Okay, well, we are at time of vote. The motion for Unidos Middle School has been seconded, and we're going for a roll call vote. Monica?
Miriam Puentes.
Present.
Did we get a second? I'm sorry, Monica, did we get a second?
We did have a second, and we went to discussion, and we'll need a agreement, not present for this one. So some sign of agreement, yay or nay.
So point of order then. So I ask for a motion. As the chairperson, I can put a motion out.
You can.
Correct? Okay,
Yeah.
so I motion for the recommendation to be Unidos Middle School. I call for a second. That's just sort of a repeat. Franklin?
I second that motion.
Thank you. And now we're ready for a roll call vote.
Okay, Miriam Puentes.
Here.
So do you, yes to?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yay or nay? Just say.
Yay.
Okay, thank you.
Susanna Martinez.
Yay.
Katie Kentock.
Yay.
Franklin Hernandez.
Yay.
Rachel Inglesgerger.
Yay.
Ann Dearborn.
Yay.
Veronica Aguayo Ochoa.
Yay.
Lori Piombo.
Yay.
And Brian Tuff.
Yay. It's like a celebration.
Wow.
You just named a school. That's pretty exciting.
That was a great process, you guys. Really,
Awesome.
really great. Wow.
Okay, so we have public comment. Do we need to go public comment at this point? Team? It's on our agenda, so I'll ask for public comment. Is there any, at this time, members of the community may address the committee regarding members of public interest on the agenda. No action will be taken unless specifically authorized by law. If the speaker wishes to address the committee on an item on the agenda, time will be provided for that item. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any comments? Raise your little hand, please.
There is no public comment at this time.
Thank you. And then before we adjourn, could someone please discuss the process as this goes to the board on Thursday. So not everybody may be able to participate, but give us a little hint on what we might see, please.
Director Reddy, you want to share what's going to happen on Thursday? First of all, I have chills. I'm so excited, and I just want to take a moment before Director Reddy shares just to say thank you to all of you and the time that you've given in the process of developing a name recommendation. And I'm just so appreciative of the time and the thought and the energy and effort that you guys put in to this process. So thank you so much. And then I'm going to pass it to Director Reddy, and she'll share a little bit about the presentation on Thursday.
Thank you. And thank you all. I just echo those sentiments and the work that you've done and the commitment you've made to this. So with that, we have one more step. And this is a recommendation that we will take to the Napa Valley Unified School District Board of Education on Thursday night. We will present it as an action item for them to consider. And so we will reach out to staff members if there's an interest in presenting with us. We will have some staff to present. And so that will be during regular session at 7 o'clock on Thursday night. Even if you're not presenting, we would ask, love for you to join by watching on Zoom, and that next step in this process, would love to still have you included in that.
Quick question, is it only on Zoom? It's not in person still, or is it?
Correct.
Okay.
We're on Zoom. We're in hybrid. The board and I are in the room, but the public remains on Zoom.
Okay.
And just to clarify, the meeting starts at 7, but I believe this item is a little further down the agenda, so it most likely will not be within the first hour or so.
It will not.
Okay.
I'll just tell you that right now.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a long agenda.
It's a really long agenda.
I'll give you a dose of reality.
And then just additionally, Franklin, we may be reaching out to the student to provide some support with that presentation, given where we landed tonight.
He's going to be really pretty thrilled. And if he can't make it, maybe he can record something.
Oh, yeah.
He'll be so excited.
He's going to be super excited.
Yeah.
So I can talk potentially with the board president. It is deep in the agenda because it follows our agenda kind of template and structure, and instructional services action item is deep in the agenda. So I can work with the board president around suggesting an amendment, since we will have you all as volunteers essentially hanging on, and we don't want you to have to stay up as late as the rest of us have to. So I can work on it, but I guarantee you it won't be in the first hour. It'll definitely be well after 8 o'clock. So we'll shoot for something between, it just depends. I have no control at public comment for non-agenda items. So I really can't even put a time out there. What I can say is that we'll try and make an amendment to the agenda that night that might be able to get it up earlier, so that you all as volunteers don't have to wait till the late wee hours of the night, I guess, which happens at times.
Will they be asking the committee members any questions or anything, or how does that usually just they vote? Right.
Yeah. So thanks, Lori. That's a great question. So I think if Monica's doing the presentation, Monica and Pat, they'll do a brief presentation at the moment of the action item. I'll let the board know that a presentation is coming before they consider staff recommendation, take the vote, and or engage in any discussion. So there'll be that presentation. Monica and Pat, you'll have to work out if you want to invite committee members to speak as part of that presentation, which I think you were kind of hinting to. You said staff, but I think you meant committee members, Monica?
Yes, we will reach out to committee members as well as the student.
So it would be Monica and Pat proactively inserting committee members to speak to the process or the sentiment around the name as part of that presentation. And then, yeah, the board can ask questions of whoever is presenting, whether that is staffers like Monica and Pat, and or committee members who were asked to co-present with staff. And then they'll discuss it, comment, put a motion on the floor, discuss it, comment, and then go to vote.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. It's been fun to work with you and learn with you. I motion to adjourn the meeting. I'm looking for a second.
No, we can't do that until we give Chair Teef a big
Yes.
round of
Yeah.
applause.
Amazing. Such a great leader.
Yes, thank you.
This is like a formal Brown Act meeting. You did an extraordinary job. And
So
so
good.
I think we need to recognize you
Absolutely.
and have it
Thank you.
recorded and archived forever, this recognition of your leadership. So
Right.
now you can take your second.
Thank you. I'm on YouTube. That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm looking for a second to adjourn the meeting.
I second to adjourn meeting.
Thank you, Lori Piombo. So all those in favor of adjourning the meeting at 7:33, say aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed? None. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your service and your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.